Okay, so, and I don't need Scoogog here anymore. We can get rid of all that kind of stuff. There we go. Now, when we work with global, as we saw yesterday, global applies to everything. Okay, anything we put into global can be used anywhere, and for most part, it acts as a mask on everything. Now, more specifically, yesterday we looked at global, and we took a look at the reusable pods and reusable components. Those host locations where we can project out onto an infinite number of spaces, and it's always displayed exactly the same way. And should any of that information change, you simply change the host location, and everywhere it's projected out updates with it. So we saw those, but we still need to figure out how the settings, navigation, and footer work. So that's what we're going to look at right now. Now we're going to start in the settings. And when I head in there, it says under all these different segments here, under the general, it says the design style. And this is the City of Aurelia Recreation. And that was something I showed you is found under the design tab. That says that we created this color scheme and the fonts that we're using, all that stuff was pre-designed by us. And this is the design piece that under global, under the settings, we've established to say, when this global piece is used, we use that City of Aurelia Recreation color scheme and fonts and everything that's part of that design. We take this, now that's been established as what the design style is for global. When I go up to Recreation, your home page, this is the master sheet. Everything is subsidiary to this page. So in here, when I go to Advanced, it says, what global node do you want here? Which is the global node that we have. And what it says is that everything that's found within this global node settings is what will be displayed on every single page, the home page and all the pages that are attached to it. That's why the color schemes and the fonts and everything is universal for our news, for our web pages, for our contact directory. It pulls all those things in because of this global node. Now, if I go back down to the global node, that's just one of the things that's in there. It says the website name is the City of Aurelia Recreation. Well, that's the name of your website, so you don't really need to do anything with that. And it says, by default, if we're going to share something on social media, we'll attach this logo or this social share image as the default. So you don't need to add it each and every time. It would just by default be able to use that. It says for the Twitter site name, we City of Aurelia. Override language is English. All content direction is overridden to say always on the left unless told otherwise. If you have a search result, it goes to a unique search page. And if you go and have a page that's not found, there's a unique 404 page. And with those, you don't really need to change anything. It just is what it is. Now, when we talk about the design style, this, because it's attached to global at the highest level, governs whatever this global piece is here. But like I said, when we look at the design tab, we can create our own global notes. So we might have one that's dedicated global for the library, global for the aquatics program, global for the seniors program. You might have different color schemes and different logos for all those individual sub pieces, and you can build them in the design tab and create your own global pieces. Now, the global override, the one that should be dictating everything by default, is what we have attached under Recreation under Advanced, which says the regular global. But when the Aurelia Youth Center might have its own design and its own global piece. And when we set up that global piece, and I'll show you the different things that we can toggle here, I could go to the Aurelia Youth Center, and under its advanced, I can override the global node with a different global node. The entire site follows the original global because that's what's established on the home page. It translates down into every one of these layers. But when we get to the Aurelia Youth Center main page, I can override the global node. And all of a sudden it adopts a new color scheme and new fonts and things like that. And for the Aurelia Youth Center becomes the new sort of host or home page. And all the child pages or grandchild pages underneath of that will all adopt whatever the Aurelia Youth Center is, because it starts and it cascades down from the top. Anything outside the Aurelia Youth Center will still be governed by the regular global, but I can target this particular node and all of its children and grandchildren to say I want it to look like something different. Does that concept of using the advanced under any one of these and adding an overriding global node, does that make sense to everyone? Okay, and you can target pages. I can go into my page here, I can go into text mark or my gallery page, and inside there under advanced, I can override it as well. So I can do it page by page. I can do it node by node. If I establish here a text mark, all the pages under it would take it into new global. Any layer that you put it at, anything below will adopt it, and you can have as many of these different global pieces as you want to design. Now, once again, I do hesitate to caution, don't create a new global node for each and every page you've got. I mean, it shouldn't be just a wild, kaleidoscope of colors for every time you go somewhere. I mean, target groupings of things. Might be, like I said, like do one for the aquatics program, or do one for the Aurelia Youth Center if you want to use it for that. I'm sure there's a governance policy that you guys are already thinking about because you subscribe to the design tab about what you might use it for. So that's how that gets implemented. Now, if I go back to global under the settings, that's all that this does, okay? It holds on to that, the design style. Now, analytics, all that does is if you're using Google Analytics, we put your Google Analytics licensing code in here, and it applies Google Analytics to your website. And that's all that analytics does. Now, not just Google Analytics, but there's a few other types that you can put in there as well. Now, forms, you're using our form builder, so you won't need this. You probably won't even see it. Shop, you don't need to go out anywhere and buy anything. So those two you probably won't even see. But I do have global content, and global content governs things that you see on each and every page. And what I mean by that is there's that newsletter sign up call to action. Every page we go to has to sign up to our new, incorrectly spelled, newsletter. Here is where I can fix it. In this bottom component, it's the newsletter sign up. If I go into there, it says at the top here, sign up to our new newsletter. And when I hit submit and save and publish, that corrects what's being displayed in that particular piece. So if I go out here now and refresh, that's now spelled correctly. Okay, so that's what governs that. It globally puts that bar as a bottom component at the bottom of every page before the footer. If you don't want it, you can remove it from here. Okay. Now, the other one is this pod, the side contact info. That's found right here. I showed you how we could get rid of it on any given page. Okay. It's simply a pod, a global content pod that contains the side info. So any page you go to, except for the one that I show you, any page you go to will have that right here by default. That's where it's pulling from. And I override that page to page as I showed you with my text mark pages and things like that. On any given page, I can go in and say I don't want that there by going to the extra content and turning the global pod off, because that's where it's coming from. And I can insert my own reusable pod with the content information that's relevant to that page. Well, how do I, what is the purpose of having it in global? Well, every page says that your site is at 255 West Street South in Aurelia. Should that change, or your phone number changes, or your email, or even the name of the recreation center, as that changes, you will need to update this. Now, it projects out globally because it's found under global settings, under the global content. Should that information change, you simply come into here. It's just a text and image box like we were with yesterday. And there it is. Change whatever it is, submit, save, and publish. Every single place that this particular side content information is projected to, which by default is every single page, will update with whatever you changed it. Okay. And that's all there is to that. So unless those things change, you probably won't touch them. Notifications, this is just that little thing, that pop-up we saw yesterday saying, hey, we take cookies. Do you want to agree? When you hit agree, it doesn't bother you for 365 days. There's no need to change any of this. Scripts, we've already got some scripts tapped into there. But these are ones that would apply to your entire site. Once again, this is global settings. Anything I attach this to, those scripts will show up. Okay. And advanced is simply disabling the delete. Now, these things are always engaged, but we hesitate. Always make sure you don't delete anything from global, because remember, it's a mask. It overlays the entire site. You move it from here, delete pieces, you delete all this. If you delete the settings from here, you have no settings, and the whole thing just kind of implodes. So yeah, just make sure you're not just, the disable delete is already on. Just make sure you don't turn those off, okay? But that's all there is to settings. Are there any questions about what we find in these pieces under settings and how we can engage them in the rest of the site? Okay, so that's what settings does. Now I'm going to skip over navigation for the moment and go to footer. Now footer we see at the bottom of every page. It's a darker blue piece out here that has your contact information, your resources, and your social media. Well, that's all governed through the footer. So all we're looking at the footer are components. They're just ways of being able to display that information. In here, there's your address. So that's what's being displayed right here. Okay. Should this address change, once again, I showed you you can change the ones that show up on the page here, but how do I change the footer one? Well, that's just right here in the address. You go in and it's just a text box with your footer information. Update it, you're good to go, just like you would with any other piece of information. Now we do have this new one called a spacer column, and all the spacer column is gives you a gap. So when we take a look at here, there's a gap in between the two segments. And so what that is a spacer column. And what it does is, well, the address takes up one of the spaces here. So with the remaining 11 increments that we can work with, how big a space do you want? Well, we picked one. So it puts a one segment gap in between the address and the resources menu. Now the resources menu is just another piece of text box in here with some hyperlinks in it. So if I go into the resources menu, it's just a box with hyperlinks. As you mentioned earlier, that you might not want the sitemap, you just remove it from this list. It no longer appears in the footers. You need to add something else like your contact directory page. You could add it in here with a link to that contact directory page. However you want to use this, you can manage it. Another spacer column, which gives us a gap in between the resources and the social media. And with social media, it's just a social link, which is a special component called social links. And all it does is builds this here. It says connect with us right there. Okay, here's the title. And then it says here's your links to the different places. Should you take up a new platform or they invent a new platform and you engage with it, you simply go to add. Okay, in here, you can add an image. This image will take you into here. I can go back out and I can take a look at like images here, and I'll probably find somewhere in here social media images or something like that. Yeah, social media icons. You pick it, you import in the new social media icon and you add it in as an image and you go to link and it's the same link. Now, when we're working with social media, those platforms exist in their own website. So all I'm doing is copying and pasting the URL of whatever page of the new social media you're at, and make sure the link title, because that's what's going to be displayed out here, and you add it in and you're good to go. I'm not going to add anything into there, but you can add to your social link listing, or add any other types of content. Just make sure you add spacer columns in because it'll adjust the spacing between it. Now at the very bottom, we put in the copyright message of the City of Aurelia Recreation, and that just adds it in right there. But for the most part, unless your contacts or the resources you're connected to or changing the social media, you probably won't touch the footer. Any questions about the footer under Global? Good. All right. The last piece is navigation. Navigation governs these. Okay. Throughout here, I have decided that, as part of it, I want to add my text mark page to recreation. Now, if I go to any page like aquatics in recreation, which I was already on, in the full menu here, it already inserts the text mark. And when I go to the text mark page, it'll give me all the children of text mark. That's fine. Okay, that's how we get to those child pages. But the parent pages, like TextMark, when I created it over here, is the same as seniors that play in programs in fitness and aquatics, which means that I want it to be alongside these in the drop down. Now we only put those parent pages in here, the ones that are directly attached to the node that's displayed here. We don't ever put the child page. So I would never insert gallery mark, accordions mark at this level. It's only the parent pages. So navigation is how I direct this. So I would go into here, into the navigation, and this is all there is. We have those 4 bars across the top, those nodes across the top here, because they sit here: recreation, culture, Aurelia Youth Center, and parks and facilities. Now you notice these are indented a little bit, and it says that these are the children of that. So aquatics, fitness programs, and seniors that play are children of the recreation, which is why they show up there. So I want to add my text mark to that. All I do is click on add. It's a link. We're not using icons, so I hit add a link. And from here, I pick text mark from my hierarchy. There we go. And it adds in. Now, by default, it's sitting right here. Now, it's at the same layer as the nodes. I don't want to create a new node out here. If you keep adding at this level, it'll start jamming up and stacking on top of each other. And when you use drop downs, it blocks the ones beneath it. It's a real pain. So always make sure we're not adding to this layer. So to move it, I just go to the navigational compass arrow, hold my left mouse button down, and I can drag and drop this. Now, if I get to the top, I sometimes will have to use the scroll bar in order to be able to see, or the scroll wheel in order to move it. But what I want to do is put it alphabetically in here. So it'd be the last one on our list. But I make sure that my dotted line is matched up with where the children are, like that. And when I release, it adds it in. Now that I've added to the structure, I can hit save and publish. Okay, now when I go out here and I refresh, when I go to recreation, it's added text mark into my list. That's all there is to it. Okay, I can add it to multiple spaces. So if I wanted to put it under culture, not a problem. Go back in here, add. It's going to add the link, go back in, find my text mark page. Go. And it says, there you go again. Did I miss the piece? I guess I did. Check the box, submit. There it is. Well, now I can go put this under culture. Just go up to here and make sure it's indented from culture. And there we go. When I save and publish this now and refresh out here, I'm under recreation and I'm under culture. Now, when we work with iCreate, if you put your pages in two separate spots, the breadcrumb trail would reflect what door you entered. So if you entered through culture, the breadcrumb trail will say you entered through culture. If you went through recreation, it would say you came in through recreation. Okay. Those just told you the door. So it's the same page, it's just a different door to get there. Same thing goes here. It's the same page, but if I go in through recreation, okay, the breadcrumb trail I get for here, or you're not using breadcrumb trail, so it doesn't make a difference. But the breadcrumb trail would say that I came in through recreation. Oh, it does down here. It says I came in through recreation. Okay. But if I go up to or go through culture and I do the page through there, it came through culture, but it still says recreation down here. The breadcrumb trail is derived from where it sits in the storage area. So it's always going to pull that text mark lives in recreation. Now, if I wanted the breadcrumb trail to match up, I could move it from here. I could copy this page and put it under culture. Now, the breadcrumb trail, when I add that second culture page, the one under culture into the navigation, would say that I came through culture. The difference being that if I copy the page and move it down, the two are not linked. If I make it edit the text mark page is found under recreation, it does not automatically update the text mark page that I have under culture. Because once I copied it, they are two separate entities. So they are not a host location. Okay? Does that make sense how I add it to the navigation? Okay. If I want to remove from the navigation, very simple. If I want the space, but I want to edit it, okay, so that I've changed the destination, I can use the edit feature and it will bring me back into edit it for what I want to be the destination here. I can remove it, but if I remove it, it simply removes the link. The space is still there. To get rid of it completely, I need to hit the trash can. Now, when I hit the trash can here, it removes it. And I can hit save and publish. Now, the trash can doesn't get rid of the page. It removes it from the navigational structure. It's still here, all right? And it still lives in our saved area. But when I head over here now, and I refresh, I'm no longer under recreation, but I'm still there under culture. I want to get rid of the culture one, come down here, trash can, gone, save and publish. And now we're back to the original way that we had it with the singular piece with the 4 items and none for the others. So when I refresh out here, I don't exist under either of them anymore. Does working with navigation make sense?
Mark, I just have a quick question for you.
Yep.
So I understand that if you copy a page and put it under a different node, if you make changes on page A, it won't reflect on page B, and that's something good to keep in mind. But if we have that as a case, and I don't know why we would, but if we did, would it have 2 unique URLs for each of those as well then?
Yes. So the URL, when we take a look at any page, so if I go to my text mark page here and I go to the info tab, what it does, it takes the domain, which is going to be aureliarecreation.com when we're ready, / recreation / text mark. If I have it under culture, this link would say culture / text mark. So when it's in a separate spot, it will have a unique URL because we do include the node in which it's saved as part of the extension that we put for our URLs.
Right. Would you say, just in your experience, that it's probably best practice to not do that then, just because I feel like that's kind of a gateway to have pages not updated when you think you updated everything to do with, you know, text mark, but you forgot to do it on another area that you have it living in. Is that something that you've come across in your experience?
Yeah, the way I would look at it is I would say, what is the most important piece here? How many people truly look at the book or at the breadcrumb trail? So you have to weigh what's more important, having accurate information or a breadcrumb trail, right? And so
Right.
for me, having a singular page projected under many things, yeah, the breadcrumb trail may not reflect it, other than the fact that if you follow the breadcrumb trail, you'll still get to the same page, right?
Right.
You know, regardless of where it is, it just kind of looks a little odd, but it's having verifiable content. And if you do it in one and forget the other, now we have conflicting information. So it's always best to err on the side of, yeah, okay, maybe that breadcrumb trail is kind of like a little thing that, you know, once you point it out, kind of bugs it. But at the end of the day, it's having that consistent information out there is the more important of the two parts of the process.
Right. Perfect. Thanks.
Yeah, great question. Okay, that's global. That's all you really do. You really don't do a lot in global, except as you add new pages, make sure they get inserted through the navigation to where you need it. The only times you go to the rest of the pieces is if, you know, things change, your contact information changes, you know, those kinds of things. You're adding to your resources or adding a new social media piece. Really, global just lives in the background, generating those colors and the button structures and the you know, the font styles. It just does its job. You're just really going to kind of engage with navigation when you need to, or build reusable components or pods as necessary, and it just lives and works. Any questions about global? Okay, let me stop the recorder there.